Here we have Coco the Clown from Bedtime. It's an animated film from 1923. And you can see that the animator has their hand in the picture, having a lot of fun squashing and stretching Coco the Clown. And you'll discover from our workshop that they use the same concept today as they did then in the animated movies that you love now. So not much has changed in 100 years, although some things have changed. Hi, everyone. My name is Brooke Keesling. I am the Director of Animation Talent Development at Bento Box Studios. We make shows like Bob's Burgers, Duncanville, Central Park, many others. And my job is to find talented artists like some of you are, and maybe someday when you work in animation, I'll be looking for you to come work on some of our shows. I've recruited talent for Cartoon Network and Disney and Warner Brothers, and now I'm at Bento Box. My entry into the world of animation was my dad owned a model train store when I was a little kid. It was in North Hollywood, California. And a lot of his customers were animators at Disney and Hanna-Barbera and local studios. And I was always sitting at his counter drawing after school. And one of them said, you know, animation is a real job. You could do this for a living someday. And I just had no idea how that all worked. So hopefully Jorge and I will shed some light on some of that for you. When I grew up, I went to CalArts, which is a school here in LA for animation. And one of my films that I made while I was there called Booby Girl won the Student Academy Award. And that's how I got involved with the Motion Picture Academy, whom I love. I love their programming. I love all the things they do. Some of my favorite things about animation are that you can tell any kind of story. There's no limitations. You can animate a puppet or a drawing or a CG model or an object. You could animate the toys in my room. So I love animation so much. I eat, sleep, and breathe animation. So I hope that we can teach you a lot about that today and that we inspire you. And then here's my co-host, Jorge Gutierrez.
Hi, you guys. My name is Jorge Gutierrez. I am originally from Mexico. I created a show with my wife at Nickelodeon called El Tigre, The Adventures of Manny Rivera. And then many years later, we made a movie called The Book of Life, which came out in 2014. Hopefully a lot of you guys were born already by that point. And I fell in love with cartoons like a lot of you as a little kid. They were my best friends growing up, the animated movies and animated TV shows. And it felt like they loved me back. So as I grew up, I love writing stories and I love drawing. And a family friend said, that's animation. If you can make these drawings move and you can tell these stories. So much like Brooke, I also went to CalArts, California Institute of the Arts. And then my favorite thing about the medium is that it's a combination of all the arts, music and acting and drawing and movement and dance. Like they're all there. So if you love the arts, animation is there for you. And then the other awesome thing about making cartoons and making a living doing this stuff is you don't have to grow up. You get to be a kid forever. So everybody you meet in animation, we're all professional children. So thank you guys for joining us, and we'll just jump in. So let's get started with our first special guest. Here is the Oscar-winning director of Up and Inside Out and the chief creative officer of Pixar Animation. Please welcome the one and only Pete Docter.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pete Docter. I'm a director at Pixar. I did Monsters, Inc., Up, Inside Out, and Soul, which we're hoping is going to come out in theaters just a few months, November 20th. I was asked to come here and describe animation and talk about flip books. And I'm here in my closet because there's some kids playing outside, and it's the only place I could find that's relatively quiet. So what happened for me when I was a kid, unlike the noisy kids outside, I was a pretty quiet kid. I sat inside a lot, and somebody gave me a flip book. I don't know if you've seen these. They're like, basically, I made one recently. I made a bunch when I was a kid, but my mom has all those. So this is one that I did in 2004. And you can see, basically, here's me under the mistletoe, and I'm waiting for a kiss from my wife. Oh, she walks right by. So then, oh, here come the kids. Oh, no kiss from them either. Whoop, there comes the dog. And it's an introduction of our new dog, which we just got at that time, named Bailey. So the cool thing about these though, is that you can tell a whole story. You can get all sorts of cool movement, but basically it's just a bunch of pieces of paper. And each drawing is just a little different than the last one. And when you flip through them, it creates the illusion of movement. Now, the thing is, at Pixar, we make computer animated films, but it's the same idea. It's basically just that we use computers to help us to draw the pictures. But each one of them, when you watch a movie, here's a little flip book of Doug. There's Doug, and he's excited about getting the ball, and then Carl throws it. So it's basically the same idea here. Each image, there's 24 of them every second. It's just a little bit different than the last one. So it's a great way, if you are interested in animation, you can get going on this right at home without a lot of expensive equipment or electronics or anything. This is one that my friend did when I gave him that flip book, and he just did this. Thank you. And you can make your own. Either grab like a, one of these notepads from like a hotel. Oh, you know what actually works really well are those 3M Post-it notes, the yellow, that have the stick 'em on the top. You can flip through those. That works really nice. Or you can also just get one of these clips like this and a bunch of either note cards or just pieces of paper. And I'm going to make one for you right now. I'm just going to use these blank pieces of paper. I'm going to draw a little picture on each page, and then when we're done, we'll clip it together like that and see how it looks. Let's see, I'm going to move the camera. Okay, so here I've just got all these pieces of paper. And the nice thing is you can do a drawing. If you make a mistake on one, you can just get rid of it. So it works nicely. The simplest thing would just be like a bouncing ball. So here we'll start with a ball. And what you want to do is kind of be able to imagine where that previous drawing is, because animation is really all about like the movement from one frame to the next. So here you can see it's kind of staying in the same place. Gonna hang there for just a second. Gonna go down just a little. Go to the next page. Now I'm gonna have it stretch out a little bit because it's falling. And then smash on the ground. Let's imagine the ground's about here. So it smushes. And then it's gonna kind of come out of the smush. And then bounce back up into the air, although maybe not quite as high as it was before, we hope. So let's see how that looks. So you can see very simple, boring ball bounce, boring, boring. So let's try something a little bit more complicated, although still, I don't want it to get too complicated because you have to draw a ton of these drawings. So, okay, let's do something slightly more complex this time. Let's start with a person standing here. And it's going to be nice and simple because we're going to draw a lot of these. We want to spend a lot of time drawing each image because there's going to be tons of these. And then what I think I'm going to do is have the character jump that way. So to go that way, I first have to go the reverse. So that's what we call anticipation. So if you try this yourself, like if you were going to jump that direction, what would you do first? You'd bend your knees, right? So the next frame is going to be kind of bending the butt back a little and getting the knees bent slightly. Okay, and then I'll go further with that. The head's down even further, the butt's back further, and the knees are bent even more. See, that's a really bad drawing. Look at that, that's awful. But it doesn't matter because you can throw it away and get another one. And it doesn't matter anyway because in animation, it's all about the movement. It's not about the individual drawings. They don't have to be really pretty they can be pretty sloppy, at least to start out with. And then maybe you go back and make them look nicer later. But, okay, so now here you can see already this character is starting to bend down. Let's go even a little further with that. So push the extreme. So now he's really, I don't know if this is a boy or a girl, it doesn't really matter. Is really bending down to get a lot of anticipation so that we can really leap off. So then we're gonna just have him or her shoot out from where they were, like that. And then, so that's gonna be the maximum thrust, and then after that we're gonna kind of slow in just a little bit. It doesn't travel quite as far this frame. And the next frame, the body's kind of catching up. Maybe this leg stays back a little further, and that arm. Okay. And the next frame, let's say this knee is bending up nice, but this one we're gonna do kind of like a follow through. Like, let's see how that works. Oh. Oops, I got two pieces of paper. Thing is, I'm not really sure where this is going. I didn't plan it out at all. Sometimes it's kind of fun. You'll just see what happens, because you go from one frame to another, and you're kind of like, oh, wait a minute. Let's say in this frame, we can see this person didn't plan very well for their jump. They're starting to twist and fall over. And now legs are coming up this way. Let's say this arm's there. And then the legs are falling down. Actually, that arm should probably be about there. This barely looks like a person anymore, but hopefully you get the idea. Whoa. I forgot to add the face on those other ones, but I can come back and do that. And let's just say that's where the impact is. So then you go splat on the ground. Actually, we should have a little bit of the legs and arms kind of coiling off the poof, and then landing. Now, normally, I'm just kind of doing this to show you how animation works, but normally you'd want to plan this out a little bit better so you have an idea of what it is you're doing. But let's see. Okay, so he jumps up, whoop, lands. I probably would have reworked that a little bit, but you get the idea. So from there, it's just a matter of making those drawings look a little better. Here's another flip book that I did a couple of years ago. I spent a little more time on these drawings, you can tell. So here's, this one is, we're putting our stockings up. There's my wife and my daughter, and there's my son with a giant stocking. And my daughter says, hey, what the? He goes, what? Because I have giant feet. Haha. So again, you can see it's just each drawing a little bit different than the last one. That's the trick. And that's how you make flip books.
That was a great gag. Hey, I get an extra stocking because I got a big foot. Thanks so much for that, Pete. That was great.
That was awesome. All right, you guys, like Pete said, you can start with a stick figure and then go back and draw in more details to your characters. So you can kind of rough it out first and then go back and put all the little specific things you want to put in there. And speaking of drawing characters, it's time to put you guys to work. So grab your pencils or pens or markers grab a piece of paper, and
we're excited to have Hyun-min Lee join us from the Walt Disney Animation Studios. She's going to show you how to draw one of my favorite characters, one of your favorite characters, one of everyone's favorite characters from the movies Frozen and Frozen 2. Take it away, Hyun-min.
Hello everybody, my name is Hyun-min Lee and I'm an animator at the Walt Disney Animation Studios. I know it's through this video screen, but I'm really happy to meet you all today, and I'm going to show you how to draw a very friendly face, and that's Olaf from Frozen. So I hope you have a good time watching me draw him, but I hope you have even more fun following along. So let's get started. So for drawing Olaf, we're gonna use 2 pencils. I'm gonna have a blue pencil and a black pencil, and the blue pencil I'm just gonna use for some rough guidelines so we can get his rough shape and placement of his different parts. So with the blue pencil, I'm gonna start with a diamond shape, and that's gonna be his head, and it's gonna be a diamond shape that has like a flat top and bottom. So maybe on the top half of your paper, start with a diamond shape. So it's a diamond shape, but with the bottom and the top a little flat like that. And with this blue pencil, just go really lightly and rough. You don't have to be very exact. There are gonna be lines you can erase later. There can be like, you can use a different color pencil if you like, but they're just rough guidelines. So in the half point of that diamond, just draw a very, very light, faint line going horizontally like that. And so from the top and that middle line in the middle of those two, then you can draw another line. And so right in that second line that we drew, that's gonna be a guideline that's gonna help us place where his eyes are gonna be. So for his eyes, we're gonna draw nice little circles, like little ping pong balls. So right above that line there, draw 1 circle and another circle. And next we're gonna have a rough guideline for his nose, his nice carrot nose. And it's gonna be starting right under those eyes, a little bit where the middle of those 2 eyes are. So draw a nice rough cone shape, and that's gonna be his nose later. And so that's it for the rough guidelines for his head, and we're gonna draw his body parts now. And he has 2 parts for his body. He's got his chest piece and his belly piece, and they're both kind of like squashed marshmallow shapes. So think of a marshmallow, but a little squashed, flatter version of it. So here's the little one for his chest, and below it, a bigger one for his belly. So they're basically kind of like rectangles, but a little rounder version of rectangles. And under that belly, we're gonna draw his 2 feet, and they're like the little marshmallows. They're the smallest marshmallows. So there's like his 1 foot and his other foot. So that's about it for the guidelines. And so next, what we're gonna do is use the black pencil and start putting in all the details. So we're gonna start with his eyes, and right where we drew those circles, I'm gonna start with 1 eye and start with a nice thick line for the top part of his eye. And then you can finish that circle all around. And then same for the other eye. We'll start with a bit of a thicker line for the top. That's kind of like his eyelash line. And and finish the circle, but careful not to draw over where the carrot is gonna be, so we can leave that part. Or if you did draw it, then don't worry about it. You can always use an eraser to erase it later after you draw the carrot too. So inside those circles, then now we're going to draw in his pupils. And his pupils are going to be nice two little ovals. And we're going to draw them on the right side of each circle. And that's going to make him look like he's looking right at us. So here's one oval. And then here's the other one. And if you color them in nice and dark, we have his eyes looking right at us. So now we have his eyes, we can finish his nose. So right where we drew that rough cone shape, just draw a more detailed carrot. So start right between those eyes, right under them. I can go over his far side eye a little bit. Sometimes you can add a little bit of a little crooked shape there because it's a carrot. And if you look at carrots, you can see that they have these ridges running all around them. So you can draw those kind of as these rounded lines all around, all down the carrot. So there we have his eyes and his carrot nose. Now we'll draw his mouth. And so for his upper lip, Olaf has a bit of an overbite, which means his upper lip is like a little bit over his lower lip. And so for the start of his upper lip, we're going to start drawing a line under that carrot, but a little bit outside of the diamond guideline we did. So somewhere over here. And then from here, you can draw his upper lip line into a nice big smile. Draw a nice big curve for a friendly smile. And then you can draw the end of his smile with a nice cheek corner. And you can add a little curve under his eye there to just indicate a little bit of that cheek pushing up against his eye. And under that lip line, we'll draw his big ice tooth. There we have his mouth. And now we can draw his eyebrows, and eyebrows are going to go right over those two eyes. So we'll draw a nice little crescent shaped eyebrows floating a little bit above his two eyes there. And now let's finish up his head. So start with a little line that connects his eyebrow and his eyes. It's a little horizontal line there. And then go over his eyebrows. It's the top of his head. And then you can connect it to that diamond shape to finish the rest of his headpiece. And we have Olaf's head. And so to finish up his head, let's draw his little hair twigs. So there are 3 little sticks on his head. So they're kind of like his hair. There's 1, there's 2, and you can draw little pieces of the stick, like little branches off of those. And a 3rd one right here. So we have this little hair twigs, I guess. So that's his hair. And now we can draw his body. So let's go to that small marshmallow. Finish up that chest piece, bottom marshmallow. One thing that can be nice to do is to make the bottom marshmallow get a little wider towards the bottom. And it gives him a cuter shape. And so in those body pieces, you know, he has his little coal buttons, so let's place them. So think of it maybe like if you put these in thirds. I'm going to use the blue pencil to help. So imagine dividing them into thirds like that. And so on the left side third line, you can draw one coal on the chest and then 2 coals for the belly. And the coals can be just these nice jagged shapes. They don't have to be perfect circles. And you can color them in nice and dark with the pencil, because they're like dark black coals. And then we're going to draw his feet. So his feet are the little marshmallows right under his belly piece there. There's one foot and the other foot. And looks like we're almost done, but we're missing something. What are we missing? We're missing his arms. So let's draw his arms. So let's see. For the arms, we're going to draw one arm first. So remember those 2 lines we drew for the thirds for the guidelines. On the other side, we're going to draw his other arm starting. So there's his shoulder. And his arms are basically 2 wooden sticks. So there's one coming down, and then you can draw his hand on the end of that stick with his thumb and 3 fingers. And there, you can shade it in a little dark. And for his other arm, I'm going to draw it on this side, but draw it a little bit diagonally in this direction. You'll see why I'm doing that as I draw it. So draw another stick. And with this arm, if we draw it this direction, what we can do is, as we draw his fingers and his hand, you can draw his fingers a little bit more spread apart. And what that does is it'll make him look like he's waving at us. So you can shade it in nice and dark. And so there we have Olaf waving his little hand at us, saying hello. And as a bonus, if you do have one, it's okay if you don't, but if you do have an orange pencil, you can always go in and color in that carrot. Nice bright orange. So there you have it. There's Olaf. So I hope you had a great time following along, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and it was very nice meeting you all. So bye-bye.
I think I drew it wrong. Mine looks like Barba Papa. I love that. I love that, Olaf.
To everybody watching, we can't wait to see your versions of Olaf. We're about to jump into storyboarding. So storyboarding is kind of figuring out the movie in drawings, almost like a moving comic strip. And that way, the directors and all the artists can tell if the movie's starting to work or if it's not working. And it's done in a way where it's really fast, because if things don't work, you can just throw it away and start over. And it hasn't gotten to the more crazy, expensive part of making the movie. So storyboarding is kind of like when you sketch and you're just thinking of ideas. Storyboarding is that for movies.
Before we can learn how to storyboard, we have a very special guest. He's the Oscar award-winning co-director of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Wonderful guy. We both love him. His name is Peter Ramsey. Take it away, Peter.
Hi, everybody. It is great to be here and to share our love of animation with you. And for me, my love of animation started when I was just a really young kid. You know, I loved comic books like Spider-Man, of course, and movies like Star Wars. And I really loved just taking a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil and just start scribbling and drawing little characters and making up stories just to entertain myself. I didn't know it back then, but I was already creating art and learning how to tell stories. And that's what we do. We're storytellers. Even though I grew up here in Los Angeles, just a stone's throw from Hollywood, I had no idea that one day I could get a job doing just that. But that's what happened through doing and studying the things that I loved. Before I became a director, I started as a storyboard artist, turning the words in a script into visual images and a story, a lot like a comic book. And you're going to learn more about how we do that in just a moment from my friend Miguel Jiron. But before I go, I just want to say that I hope today we can inspire you to find something that interests you and moves you, and that we can encourage you to keep doing it. Draw lots of pictures, write stories, make music or funny videos, whatever it is you love, just keep on doing it. And remember, you have the power to create magic through your imagination. And now I'm going to turn you over to my very talented friend, Miguel Jiron, who is a head of story at Sony Pictures Animation and who was our story artist on Spider-Verse. So over to you, Miguel.
Hi everyone, my name is Miguel Jiron and I'm really excited to talk to you today about what I do, which is working as a storyboard artist at Sony Pictures Animation. Most recently, I worked on a movie you might have seen called Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is one of my favorite films I've ever been a part of. After working on Spider-Verse, I actually went on to direct an animated short film, which featured my favorite character from the movie, Spider-Ham. It's called Spider-Ham Cotton-a-Ham, and I also drew all the storyboards in the short film as well. Today, I'm going to give you a little behind-the-scenes look at making the short and explain more about what storyboarding actually is. So, what is storyboarding? Storyboarding is a visual representation of a film sequence, the sort of blueprint or roadmap of how a scene will feel, look, and play out in time. As a storyboard artist, I take the script or outline, or sometimes even just a description, and I will draw out hundreds of drawings that will define the cinematography, the pace, the rhythm, the acting, and even the writing, finding areas where I can enhance the emotion or add jokes. Essentially, I'm drawing out a rough version of the scene that will ultimately go to an editor who will string all those hundreds of drawings in order along with sound. This way, we can workshop scenes and find out the best way to film any given moment before we add hundreds and hundreds of animators, lighters, modelers onto the scene. It's a safe place to explore and find ways to make the scene as best as it possibly can be. Storyboard artists have to wear a lot of hats. You're part director, part writer, part cinematographer, part editor, part animator, and you're even part showman sometimes, pitching your scene in front of tons of people in a room. It's super fun, but also super difficult job, as you can imagine. You're constantly exploring and coming up with ideas to make scenes better, funnier, more engaging, and more emotional. For me, as hard as it is, it's the most fun part of the process. You're always throwing ideas on the wall and seeing what sticks. And you're the first to tackle how a scene will play out cinematically, which is kind of a great opportunity. You're only bound by your imagination when you can draw, and it's incredibly gratifying to craft a scene from the ground up. And that, in a nutshell, is what I do as a storyboard artist. So here's a few visuals to show you some of the early drawings we did of Spider-Ham for the short. Here you'll see some beautiful drawings from Craig McCracken, a lot of people at the Titmouse team who helped us animate the short. Spider-Ham Cotton-a-Ham was such a love letter and amazing opportunity to make the best homage to the golden era of Looney Tunes, the classic cartoons that I grew up with, that I was obsessed with and still am. So it was a lot of fun exploring the visuals and the character explorations and making this the ultimate cartoon starring our beloved Spider-Ham. And here's a small demonstration of how we utilize these types of drawings to create a sequence and tell the story. This is the villain from the short Docter Crawdaddy getting ninja starred in the eye. And you can just tell from these really simple 3 drawings that we're establishing a cause and effect, right? Spider-Ham is grabbing the star, Docter Crawdaddy is looking what's happening and then getting ninja starred in the eye. Essentially, this is any joke boiled down to its essence. It's the setup, it's the action, and it's the reaction. So now when you put all the order drawings together, you can see that it becomes a moving sequence. And I love this movie you're watching right now because it so clearly illustrates how much of a roadmap and blueprint storyboards ultimately can be. You know, when we were making this short, we wanted to make sure that we were super direct and super clear with what we expected for the animators and everybody else involved in the short to follow. And as you can see, we kind of stuck with it pretty closely. Whatever happens in the storyboard is what you ultimately will see on screen. So now that you've seen a little bit of what storyboarding is and how we use drawings to tell the story, I'd love for you to try it out with me. I'm going to take you through a quick demonstrations of 3 different types of shots we use all the time when we're drawing, and then give you a chance to try. Feel free to grab whatever materials you like best, piece of paper, pen, notebook, whatever. And while you do that, I'll get my screen set up as well. All right, so I'm going to step through 3 super classic camera setups that we use in filmmaking all the time. It's kind of like our bread and butter, foundational type of shots. The first shot, I'm just gonna write it down, is the establishing shot, the medium shot, and the close-up. The establishing shot is sort of like your showcases exactly where this scene is set up. So in the case of Spider-Ham Caught in a Ham, most of it is set in Dr. Crawdaddy's evil lair that's totally nondescript and part of the city. I'm drawing the city skyline super roughly, super crudely, so you get just the basic idea, right? And the biggest thing about storyboarding oftentimes is clarity, right? Because if they're lost, then you're lost, you know? So establishing shots, very basic, very simple to show us where we are. They are great. A medium shot is sort of like your classic shot of your characters, often filmed from the waist up. So classic medium shot, again, the idea of a medium shot, you're just showing the character what they're doing. It's perhaps not the most emotional or the most intense part of the sequence. It's just your classic setup to be like, okay, we're focusing on this character and here he or she is doing what we need to see them doing. And so for our last shot, the close-up, we often employ close-ups for the more emotional and more intense part of the shots, because this is where we really want to be in the character, with the character, right? So, you know, this probably will be a little bit of an extreme close-up. And again, you know, this is not necessarily about coming up with the best, most beautiful drawing. I have to say that right now. It's about getting the clarity. Close-ups are what you want to use when you absolutely want to make sure the audience is in the character's head. And here you are. These are kind of the 3, again, you know, there's many variations of these shots and many more as you start thinking as a filmmaker. And I encourage you when you're watching movies to start thinking like a filmmaker, seeing what sort of shots there are, what they're using, and why they're using it. These are just simple, kind of the basic shots that we kind of build the cinematography and filmmaking language from. Establishing shot, medium, and close-up. And I hope this is just the beginning of your journey and exploring you as a filmmaker yourself. So that's a short demonstration of the type of elements that storyboard artists keep in mind when creating a movie sequence. If drawing is something that you enjoy, I would totally encourage you to keep practicing drawing different characters, and even using storyboards to create your own stories that you can share with others. I'm glad I got to share a little part of my time working on Spider-Verse with you, and thank you all for following along today. Bye, everyone.
Yay, Miguel. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Right? He's so great. I mean, that, you know, you don't have to make a movie to use that language he just talked about. That you can use in your own comics if you just draw comics for your friends and, you know, notes that you pass them during class. Oh, wait, you're not supposed to do that.
Don't forget, you can watch the entire short Spider-Ham, plus a lot of really cool extras about animation on Oscars.org. Click events and choose Family Day, the art of animation.
The word animate means to bring something to life that is not alive. So if you're animating a drawing, you're giving that drawing life. If you're animating a puppet, you're giving that puppet life. But those characters have to also live in a world, and the production designer gets to pick the colors and the costume design and what the world looks like. Is it pretty? Is it dark? Is it bright? Is it sunny? Is it whatever all of those things are? That's where the production designer gets together with their team, and they work to make everything magical and pretty for you to watch in your animated movie.
And to tell us more about it, we have the amazingly talented Kendal Cronkhite and Priscilla Wong from Trolls. They were responsible for creating the handmade feel of the whole movie. Kendal and Priscilla are going to tell us how they created all these magical worlds. Over to you, Kendal.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kendal Cronkhite, and I'm a production designer in feature animation. I started my career as a production illustrator on Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, and realized once I got in that not only could I draw and paint like I always did, and illustrate like I always did, but I could sculpt models and build them out of foam core and work with the model shop and the set builders on the sets. And I really got a sort of full education on what it meant to be a designer in the animated world. So I went from Nightmare and then went on to James and the Giant Peach as an art director, and did that for about 2.5 years before I started at DreamWorks. There was this new thing happening in animation at that time, and it was computer graphics animation. So when I started at DreamWorks, I actually started there on Ants as an art director. I actually didn't even own a computer at the time. So when I first came in, I said, do you guys want me to design for the computer? And the director said, no, we want you to design what's best for the movie, and then we'll figure out how to make it in the computer. And that's been kind of a mantra for me ever since. I've stayed in computer graphic animation with DreamWorks since then, so it's been about 24 years. And then I went on to production design Madagascar 1, 2, and 3, and then Trolls and Trolls World Tour after that. I think one of the great things about being a production designer, you're involved in so many aspects of the filmmaking. You oversee the art department, so I usually have a group of artists that are made up of visual development artists that draw and paint, set designers that work in CG and 3D, and character designers as well. I work really closely with the art director in all aspects of designing the film. And together with the VFX soup, we then oversee all the departments responsible for actually building the film in modeling, surfacing, which is creating all the surface textures, whether it's glass or metal or bark or wood. We work with them on what that should look like. Skin for characters, hair, all of that. And then we also work with effects, we work with the set dressers, and we actually oversee the lighting. On Trolls, we worked really closely with one of our Viz Dev artists, Priscilla Wong, who really embraced scrapbooking, and she did it all practically. And I'm going to hand it over to her now to talk a little bit about her process.
Hi, I'm Priscilla Wong, and I'm the scrapbook artist on Trolls. My work as a scrapbook artist involves drawing, painting, cutting, sewing, and animating sound waves. When I first started out in animation, I didn't know where I'd fit in. Only with Kendal would I get to work on practical art on a 3D film.
Thanks, Priscilla. So after Trolls 1, we went on to Trolls World Tour. For Trolls World Tour, we had many environments based on musical genres, and also tied it into our Trolls aesthetic, which was kind of wacky and based on fiber. So we had our pop trolls in Pop Village that were from the first movie. We had country western trolls in Lonesome Flats, a western one-road town, all created with quilts. And the characters are part troll, part horse. We had classical trolls, little flying Mozarts, and their world is like Machu Picchu, but covered in Rococo fabrics and lots of brocaded trims. And then Funk is in a spaceship, loosely based on George Clinton's Parliament, and they would always have a spaceship on stage. And inside it's basically like a lava lamp coming to life. It feels that way. There's a lot of instruments, but it's all made out of shag and metallics and a lot of satins and crushed velvets, which we felt really suited Funk well. And we had hard rock trolls. And hard rock is denim and leather with a little animal print thrown in. We also have a lot of studs and zippers in Hard Rock, which was really fun. All the graffiti in Hard Rock is embroidered, kind of like a jean jacket from the 70s. And Hard Rock was a volcano. So all our lava was like silk and ribbons and glitter. And the world of techno is underwater, and it's based on EDM nightclub in a coral reef. The idea kind of came from what's water related and fiber related, and we came up with this nautical knot idea, and macrame is a series of knot making. So it's all built out of macrame and weaving with, if you imagine, kind of fiber optics woven through it and a lot of laser lighting. And our trolls are mer trolls, troll and mermaid, and they glow. So that's just a quick look at some of the work that I've done as a production designer in animation. I hope it inspires all you young filmmakers out there who want to get involved in animation. It's an amazing, amazing profession. I feel very, very fortunate to be able to draw and paint and design all day and collaborate with filmmakers and artists that are amazingly talented. So join us. We would love that. Thanks a lot. See you soon. See you at the studio.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Priscilla and Kendal.
That was incredible. It made me want to start cutting things up in my studio and just building things.
I know, I want a glue gun and some googly eyes right now.
Music is super important in animation, especially since a lot of animated movies are musicals. And music can also convey emotions. Sometimes it's really hard to say something, and you hear just enough of music and you know exactly how the characters feel. And it's another weapon to communicate. And really, really skilled composers and musicians and sound designers, everybody works together like an orchestra to make these movies sound the way they sound. It really is incredibly important. Just try to watch an anime movie and turn off the sound to see what I mean.
True. And then if you're listening to the soundtrack later and you're not watching the movie anymore because you're listening to the soundtrack, you can see those visuals in your mind later. So they kind of work hand in hand that way. Our next guest is the Oscar-winning composer who has written the music for so many animated films. You've definitely heard his music. He wrote the music for Up, Ratatouille, Zootopia, Coco, and Inside Out. Let's all welcome Michael Giacchino. And it looks like you have a very special guest with you, Michael.
Hey everyone, I'm Michael Giacchino, and this is my son,
Griffey Giacchino.
Griffey Giacchino. Nice to see you all. Normally we would do this talk in person in a nice amphitheater over at the Academy building, but we're doing things differently this year, so we're all going to be at home watching. And I think what I'm here to do is talk a little bit about music for animated films. You know, normally when I'm writing music, I'll have an entire orchestra in front of me to perform it. So I don't really have an orchestra with me right now to demonstrate any of that, and I doubt you have one at home either. So what we're going to do is find some just weird objects around the house that we can use to maybe make some music with. Now, these actually are some things that I have used in the films that I worked on. We'll start with this right here. Griffey, do you want to explain what this is?
Sure. So this is what we call the Griff sticks. We made them when we were in Home Depot. How many? A couple years ago.
That was a bunch of years ago.
A lot of years ago, and I just got all the parts and it sounded enough like it could be an instrument. So
it was one of the percussionists in the orchestra. His name is Emil Richards. He encouraged him because why don't you make something, and then we can use it on I'll play it with you on the score. So we went to Home Depot and Griffey found these big bolts, and he also found all these washers. And he was like, I think we could put these together. And do you remember how you played them on the score?
Not really.
With Emil?
Yeah, that's all I remember.
There it is.
Yeah.
Just like that. But anyway, they make a great sound, and you can just make it from things you have at home. These are just big bolts and washers. Let's see, what else we have? This. What is this?
A bowl.
A bowl. We know you have a mixing bowl at home, that's for sure. And mixing bowl can be used in many different ways, and it makes a lot of weird sounds. Do you want to? What would you do with this?
Sure, like.
Yeah.
It's a lot of different beats that you can make.
Yeah, so you can do all kinds of things with it. So that's another thing. Go find a bowl or something in the house that you can use, and you can hit it with something soft, like a piece of wood with cloth over it, or this is just a little spoon. That works as well too. So speaking of the spoon, we have some just random pieces of metal here. They're just pieces of metal that are used, and you can use any kind of metal. You can use tin cans, you can use things that you find in the garage, old nails maybe, old whatever's, just, you know, old tools actually, like an old wrench might be cool to hit with this as well. So you'll have to do some experimentation, but the point is you can use them in a variety of ways. Let's see.
It makes a lot of different sounds, right?
Yeah, and then each one has their own sort of tone, you're right. All right, so that's cool. And then we have, this is kind of crazy. This is just a long spring attached to a cardboard tube. Now you're like thinking, what is that going to do? But it really, kind of sounds like a cymbal. But then when I was showing it to Griffey, he was like, oh wait, let me try something with that.
It's like a futuristic sound kind
Yeah, give a beat, like give a nice solid. It's a cool sound, so you can record that. And then these are just these wooden pieces that my daughter painted and made for me years ago, I think for Father's Day. And I ended up using them on Star Trek. And so this is how they sound. So if you know the score from Star Trek, at the very beginning, the first thing you hear is this. And that's what you hear in the score of these right here. So again, pieces of wood that you could find around the house, or old, you know what might work is like a wooden spoon from the kitchen. That would probably be perfect. A couple of those you could hit against each other. It'd be great. So what we'll do is we're going to, oh wait, let's not forget this. You probably don't have this at home, but in case you do, maybe you can make your own version of this with some sort of plastic trumpet or a plastic, maybe a funnel or something like that. Again, the garage is going to be your treasure trove for what to do. Here, what's this sound like? So, yes, that could be very useful when creating something for an animated film. So we're going to run through all of those real quick. I'm going to try and get a closer shot so that you can see them better. Let's see what we can do with it. Are you up for trying to make something with those sounds?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Well, there you have it. Instant music from things made around the house. Now get out there to your house, go look for things that you can use to be creative with and make some music. Make sure you ask your parents first. That's probably a good idea. But that was fun. What'd you think? It was fun, right?
Yeah, it was fun.
It was really fun. Well, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully next time we'll see you in person. We can do this all again in person. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
We'll probably never win Oscars for music, but we tried.
Pierre McCheese is like, you're giving me a headache. The saying is that animation is acting on paper, right? I don't know if you've ever heard that, But one thing that we haven't talked about yet is the voice actors. You want all of your cartoon characters and animated characters to say things to each other. And so we find really amazing actors from all over the world to do the voice acting. They usually have like really distinct voices. They can do funny voices. They're very recognizable. And if you can hear their voice and see their picture without seeing the actual picture, then they've done their job really well. So what do you want to say about voice acting, Jorge?
You know, it's where the characters really come alive. A lot of the times we record the actors first. Most of the times we record the actors first. And then the animators draw based on those performances. It really is a team of people coming together to make these characters come alive. And if you like doing voices, you know, there's actual jobs for kids to do voices, because adults can never sound as good as a kid. But yeah, voice acting is amazing. So to hear more about voicing unforgettable animated characters, we are switching over to Paris, all the way in France, where we're going to meet the incredibly talented Pierre Coffin and learn how to talk like a minion. Pierre is not only the voice of the Minions, like all of them, but also the Oscar-nominated co-director of the Despicable Me movies and Minions.
Hello everyone, do you see the Eiffel Tower way over there? Huh? Well, that's because we're in Paris, France. And I'm Pierre Coffin. I'm one of the directors of the 3 Despicable Me's, 1 Minion. But I'm also the voice of the Minions, and I'm gonna show you today how it is I do what I do. So let's get to it. So, it always starts off with an idea, and today I chose to tell you a story where Stuart is going to play the ukulele and Otto is going to give him some advice. Otto is this new character we have in our upcoming movie, The Rise of Gru. He's really nice, but talks a lot. And also, he has braces, which give him this little lisp when he talks. So, he's going to try and help Stuart by giving him notes and 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 notes, until Stuart is going to lose it and hit him over the head with his ukulele to make him stop. And you would think that Otto would be hurt by this lack of love, but no, in the end, he's going to hum the song exactly like he wanted it. So, what you're seeing here are just like very, very rough thumbnails telling that story. And what I'm going to do next is take those individual drawings, put them each at a certain timing, and add dialogue and some singing to the whole thing. Okay, so, recording, take 1. Okay, Stuart. Por la motica, papageno, por la minachos, tacos, enchiladas, pero, maquituna, y carage, okay? Go! Okay, Stuart. Por la mitica, papageno, por la minachos, tacos, enchiladas, pero, maquituna, y carage, okay? Go!
Okay, Stuart. Por la mítica, papageno, por la minazos, tacos, enchiladas, pero, maquituna, y carage, okay? Go!
Okay. So what I need now is lyrics. Okay. Pola kinotika. Por aquí notica, cuña tu palinota, kula mi banana. Okay, sorry for the bad lyrics. Go! Por aquí notica, cuña tu palinota, kula mi banana. Ooh, okay. Why not? And let's hear it back in real time. I'm just going to mute my reference track. And...
Kituna, ikarage, okay? Go! Por aquí no chica, cuña tu bolanita, kula mi banana.
Wow, okay. Hey. So now I'm going to continue writing words for Otto and adding stuff. So I'll probably speed that part up. Let's see what we have.
Ok, Stuart. Por la mítica, papageno, por la minazos, tacos, enchiladas, pelo, pelo, makituna, ikarage, ok? Go! Por aquí no chica, guña tu bolanita, curabi banana. Pesto la tapas, bravi, bravo, gazpacho. Mais tous les deux, muy happy. Ma quel est tristo, ok? Go, go, go. Tristo, ok. Aspetta, no tristo, melancolio, con larmos, ok? Go. Melancolio, ok. Stuart, aspetta, no melancolio, ma constipado, ok? Ok. Ah no! No constipado! Pinocchio burrata! Mare constipado! Psa! Plamok!
And so, after having done those thumbnails, after having written those weird dialogues and played badly the ukulele, I usually go and use this software called Blender. It's a 3D animation software which has a 2D traditional animation module inside of it. In short, you can make your drawings come to life. Blender is really, really awesome and incredibly fun to use. And it's totally free. What you're about to see now is not fully finished, but it's usually what I give my animators as reference for what they need to animate. So it's more about the overall ideas than the little details.
Ok, Stuart. Por la mítica, papageno, por la minazos, tacos, enchiladas, pelo, pelo, makituna, ikarage, ok? Go! Por aquí no chica, guña tu bolanita, curabi banana. Pesto la tapas, bravi, bravo, gazpacho. Mais tous les deux, muy happy. Ma quel est tristo, ok? Go. Tristo, ok. Aspetta, no tristo, melancolio, con larmos, ok? Go. Melancolio, ok. Stuart, aspetta, no melancolio, ma constipado, ok? Ok. Ah no! No constipado! Pinocchio burrata! Mare constipado! Psa! Plamok!
And voila! That's what I do. I hope you found all that interesting, and I hope some of you will be inspired to do their own stuff. Doodling, editing, animating, and doing the voices is all great fun. So thank you for watching, and have a great day, and please stay safe.
That was so great. And then he said,
Pierre.
yeah, thank you, Pierre. The program he used is free, you guys. It's called Blender. So obviously ask your parents' permission, but you can install it and you can start doing what he did. And it doesn't cost anything, which is really cool.
So now it's time for the kids who attended our workshop to create a brand new character with Jorge. Oh, I see many of you. Hi, everyone.
Hi, you guys.
Oh, thanks for watching this. This is really fun. Yay. Okay.
All right.
So what do we got? What's our first suggestion? Do you have one for us? Katie apparently is able to tell us. What does Katie want?
Fire?
What do you want? Fire?
Fire, yeah.
Yes, let's do,
Awesome.
you know what? Let's do a character that has fire for hair. Let's make her a lady.
Ooh, fire lady.
And then like, there's fire everywhere.
I love this fire character. That was a good idea, Katie.
That's an awesome idea. And then I'm gonna add some color just to make it look more like fire.
Okay, our next person who wants to give a suggestion is Nazeli. Where's Nazeli? Or Nazali?
Can you draw a bunny?
And a bunny. All right.
Fire lady likes her bunny.
And then a bunny can be looking at the fire lady.
You guys get to boss around a famous animation director. This is amazing.
He's looking up and he's going, uh-oh, lady's on fire.
So after Jorge gets through with a little bit more bunny, Robin D is going to be the next person to give us a suggestion. So Robin D, if you can unmute and tell us what you want to be added to this scenario.
I want a character that has water.
Oh, and a character who has water. That's
No,
a great idea.
Ice and water.
Ice.
Ice and water.
Ice and water. All right.
Ice, baby.
Ice and water. Ice and water. Ice and water.
All right.
Water comes out of his hands and ice comes out of her. No, water comes out of his hands and ice comes out of his head.
Whoa.
Or his eyeballs.
All right. Let me do. Here's a guy, and he's worried, and he's coming, and just like she's made out of fire, he's gonna be
made out of ice and water.
Made out of ice.
And water.
And then he'll have. Obviously, he's worried about the lady being on fire. Well, she's not made out of fire, but she has fire for her hair. So then water will be coming out of him.
Okay, while Jorge's doing this, Liana is our next person who gets to give a suggestion. Liana, do you want to unmute yourself and say what you would like? You can add to these characters, give a suggestion about them, or you can throw some other thing in.
Can you draw a fairy?
A fairy? That's great. All right. Why don't we make this lady be a fairy? So she'll have wings. So she's a fire fairy.
Woo.
And then she'll have tiny little legs. And she'll be holding a wand.
This is a game you can play with each other, you know, at home, where one person draws the head and then the next person draws the body and the next person colors them in. You know, you can kind of create a character together with your friends or siblings. So our next person is Sebastian. Sebastian, are you able to unmute and add to the conversation?
Say yes.
Yes.
What do you want to add?
A tiger.
A tiger? That's great. All right, here we go. Tigers are the best.
Tigers are the best.
All right.
El tigre.
There you go. All right, so let me move these guys over because we're starting to.
I gotta pause it.
Hold on. All right. So now a tiger is going to show up. That's the nose, and then look, these are the stripes.
You know what the tiger doing?
Tiger's looking from this side.
It's freaking out.
The tiger's freaking out. Look, he's going, oh no. Give you, make sure he has ears. We add little stripes.
Aww.
And then we don't see his super hard to draw body, but we see his tail. So we know he's a tiger. And he has whiskers. He has fur. And then we can color him orange. So when you guys are drawing, you don't have to worry about stuff looking super clean. It's more about having fun and
True.
making sure that you're,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you all so much for that. And thank you, Jorge. That was really great. So that was wonderful. We got lots of great ideas. And we've also been getting a lot of great questions. Jordan, 9 of Palms, California, question you asked was, how can I break into the business? I'm artistic. That's great, Jordan. We love that you're artistic. Jorge, do you want to start with answering that question, how to break into the business?
Well, becoming an animator or going into making cartoons is just like any other job in that most people have to go to school. So after you graduate from high school, a lot of people either take internet classes or they go to film schools, or they can go to sort of art school and then move on to animation school, or go to a regular college, like a community college, and then work their way into a film school or a cartoon school. And so if you love cartoons as a kid, you can take that love and basically train to do this for a living. But it's just like with anything in life, the harder you work at it, the better it'll be for you. And in cartoons, we always say it takes 1,000 drawings to do one good drawing. So draw as much as you can. And that is the way to do it.
And right now, because you're pretty young, just draw wherever you can. You're obviously not able to go to college at this moment, but I know that around Los Angeles and other cities all over the United States and all over the world, there's places where you can learn to draw, like do life drawing at, you could go draw the animals at the zoo, draw yourself in the mirror, draw your feet, draw your hands, just draw anything you can to really get that visual language going, because everyone needs to learn those basics. So once you're a little bit older, you can break into the business. Our next question is from Willa, who's 11. Willa lives in Los Angeles. Willa, are you going to unmute and ask your question, or I can read your question for you?
You can read my question.
Okay, Willa. How many versions of an animated character do you typically go through before you have a finalized character? That's a really good question. There's many iterations, right, Jorge?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's like figuring out what you're gonna eat, right? So you go, do I want to eat this? Do I want to eat that? Last time I ate this, it wasn't as good. So you start trying to remember other movies and other characters, because you don't want to design or come up with a character that's too similar to movies. They have to be different, but at the same time, it's really good to think about why you love certain characters and what made you sort of fall in love with them or laugh at them. It's a mix. You want things to be new, but also a little bit familiar. And especially with characters, it's always super, super good to base them on people you know. So they can be based on you, or it could be based on your brothers and sisters, or your parents, or your friends, or the cafeteria lady that you don't like, or your favorite teacher. And then these characters start to have sort of their own personality. And so instead of just making a funny drawing or a pretty drawing, you start adding character. And that's super, super important.
If you notice sometimes when you watch your favorite shows, the characters can change sometimes. They evolve sometimes from the first season of that show. They might have new qualities and new characteristics by the third or fourth or fifth season of that show. So sometimes the characters evolve in ways that, that the artist didn't even expect it to. So if you have characters that you like to draw, just keep drawing them and draw them in different scenarios, draw them as in outer space, and draw them as a cowboy or a cowgirl, and draw them in all sorts of scenarios. Our next question is from Ella.
Hi.
Hi, Ella.
What is your favorite type of technology that you use to animate your characters?
I now mostly draw on the computer. I used to draw on paper all the time. So I love drawing on the computer because, like I mentioned earlier, it allows me to try a bunch of things and not worry about running out of paper or ink. So we use these drawing tablets, and you could do it on an iPad, or you can do it on a Cintiq, but it allows you to be able to draw anywhere, which is really, really cool. And for animation, the thing that I started using was called Flash, and now it's called Adobe Animate.
Yeah.
And it's a really easy way to sort of jump in and make little cartoons. So I always encourage kids, if your parents allow it, get Adobe Animate. And if you don't, if you don't want to get that, like we mentioned earlier, you can also get Blender, which is free.
There's all sorts of inexpensive programs. I know a lot of people like to use Procreate to draw. Procreate is not very expensive. iStop Motion, I think, is still one that you can get, like to do little stop motion. Like you could animate things on your desk or on the floor or your Lego or whatever. So there's all sorts of technology. Technology always changes. It's really always about the ideas and your own personal point of view as an artist. So that's the main thing that you have going for you as an artist. So as you grow and develop your style, keep drawing and keep developing your own style and learn from other artists, and you'll keep on the right track. Our next person is Anderson, who's 5 from Culver City. Anderson, do you want to ask your question?
I don't want to.
You don't want to? I'll do it for you. Anderson's question is, what is your favorite thing to draw?
My favorite thing to draw, and if you have seen the Book of Life, you'll probably figure it out, but I love drawing skulls. Skulls, sad skulls, angry skulls, confused skulls. I don't know why. Ever since I was a kid, I really look forward to Halloween and Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, and I've always loved drawing skulls for some reason. Now I'm working on a thing where the bad guy has over 600 skulls on him. So just you wait. Yeah, skulls are my favorite thing. What about you, Brooke?
I like drawing what is called anthropomorphized food, which just means that it's food that's turned into like a character. So like a cheeseburger with eyes on it, like I have kind of behind me. I think it's really funny to make food into a character. So that's one of my favorite things to draw. And when I was little, I liked drawing Wonder Woman. I was the person in my school who was best at drawing Wonder Woman. So I drew Wonder Woman on all of my friends' notebooks. Elaine and Javela, 13 years old, I'm guessing twins. The question is, how do you pick your voice actors? We work with people who are called casting agents, and the casting agent's job is to help us find the voice actors. And they know all the voice actors all over the world, and they say, oh, okay, you want a voice that kind of sounds like this? I have just the right person for you. And they help us find them. And those actors can audition, or sometimes if we know them already, then they just do it. There's some voice actors that do so many voices, you wouldn't even know that they were the same person, right, Jorge?
Oh yeah. Another way to find them is when you're watching movies and you hear them speak, you go, oh, they sound so unique or so different. And then you look around and, you know, in animation, we don't always want to use the same people because then movies start sounding exactly the same. So you also want to find actors who've never done it so that they're bringing a new sort of flavor to the dish. And then with kids, you know, kids grow up, right? So their voices change. So hiring kids to do cartoon voices is incredibly unique because you will always need to have real kids to sound real. No one can make the voices sound like a real kid. So that's a very special sound. And I've been, you know, very lucky to have been able to record kids in their first movies. So that's always awesome. Because, you know, a lot of kids are really funny and do really funny voices at home, and then you can get paid to do that.
Awesome. Okay, so our next question is from Eleanor, who's 10, from North Hollywood, California, very close to where I am right now. Jorge, what are some of your favorite animated films?
I adore Henry Selick and Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. That is the movie that made me want to go into animation. I also really love Spirited Away, Miyazaki's Spirited Away. If you kids haven't seen that movie, you should watch it. You're going to love it. And then the first movie I saw in a theater when I was little, this is in the 70s. I'm pretty much sure none of you were born at this time, but my dad took me to see Pinocchio on the big screen, and I'm 45, and I haven't recovered from that experience. It was freaking amazing. And then I'm just going to admit it. One of my all-time favorite animated movies is The Book of Life. Every time I watch it, I get to feel everything I felt making that movie. I get to visit all my friends. All those characters are so dear to me. So I know it's not normal for people to pick their own movies, but I adore The Book of Life.
I think that's wonderful because you worked so hard on it for so many years, and you probably love the team that you worked with. So I think that's a great thing I think it's great to love your own work. Self-love is a good thing. Some of my favorite movies would be, I like a lot of films that I saw when I was a kid, like Bambi and, Snow White. And then of course, Nightmare Before Christmas is a huge one, I guess because we're about the same age-ish. So that was a big one. And I love stop motion so much. I like to see a lot of movies at film festivals. When you get older, you could go to film festivals and animation festivals, and you can see movies that you wouldn't see anywhere else. And they're usually shorter movies. So there's a lot of films, I won't say the names of them, but there's a lot of movies that are being made by artists all over the world, even as we speak, that I really love to see. Our next question is from Madeline, who's 13, and Marlo, who's 9, and they're from Los Angeles.
What is the hardest thing for you to animate or draw?
Anything in perspective. I'm kind of more of I like flat things. I like kind of organic things. I don't like having to do things where I have to measure everything and, make things something that's like super, super precise. So I like more organic shapes and more natural shapes than like having to draw a car exactly the way the car looks would be harder for me than getting to draw kind of a cartoony looking car.
You know what's really hard too? When people ask you to draw them, because I draw funny, as you guys hopefully saw, I'm a cartoony guy. So when people ask me to draw them, it's really hard for me to not make fun of them. And my natural instinct is to do a funny drawing of them. But a lot of people, that's not what they want. They don't want you to make fun of them. And they certainly don't want you to make fun of what they look like. So that's the worst when like an older lady or an older gentleman or someone really serious finds out I'm an artist and they go, hey, could you draw me? It makes me very nervous, and I have to hold back from making fun of them.
I actually love it when people draw kind of unflattering drawings of me. I think it's just hilarious. It's good to have a thick skin when you ask someone to draw you. Our next question is from Jaden, who's 7, who's in Los Angeles, California. How long will it take to do all of the drawings for a short film? But we don't have a length on that. So how long does it take to do all of the drawings for a film?
Some people can do a little short in one day. They can spend like 4 or 5 hours doing it. And then some people, like me, I spent 3 years doing an 8-minute short. It could take a long time. And then some people can take even longer than that. So it all depends on how complicated and how long your animated short's going to be. What about you, Brooke? How long did it take you to do your Student Academy Award-winning short?
Movie girl. It took me 9 months to draw it, and then a few more months to do what's called post-production. So drawing it is the production of it. And I just remember sitting in my apartment, and I drew it on paper, and just being surrounded by as much paper on the floor as I had in my stack of complete drawings that I was happy with. I felt like I had just as many drawings that I had to throw out, because also I was animating in pen. I didn't animate in pencil first, so that probably added to it. But it's it's very gratifying. Like, you do a few drawings and then you test the drawings to see how they're animating the way that Pete Docter did in the flip book. And when you see them come to life, it gives you the energy to keep going forward. So it's a tedious but exciting process all at the same time. Our next question is from Ramsey's, who's 11 in Tijuana. Oh, we have someone here from Tijuana. Do you want to ask your question?
What kind of things do you guys get inspired to draw your characters?
Oh, inspiration. That's a good question.
First of all, I grew up in Tijuana, so Viva Tijuana. For me, my biggest inspiration has always been where I'm from. And when I say where I'm from, I don't just mean, I'm originally from Mexico. I mean my parents and my family and all the stories that my grandmother and my grandfather used to tell me. You guys talk to your grandparents, talk to your parents. They are full of stories. Ask them how they met. Ask them about their first fight. Ask them about the first time they got in trouble. Those are amazing stories. So I always say everybody has a book of stories in their life, and it's all there. So that's been always my biggest inspiration. What about you, Brooke?
I love color. I don't know if you can see it, but I always wear a color wheel. It's a pin. It's a little magnet actually, and it's a color wheel. I love color so much. You can probably see a lot of color in my room. I'm very much affected by what is known as pop culture or popular culture. So just cartoon characters and fast food mascots and, just all of the things that we see kind of in our daily life that we ingest. I kind of, I think an artist's job is to ingest the world as they see it and then spit it out with their kind of fingerprint or their flavor on that. So I'm inspired by music. I'm inspired by other people's films. I'm inspired by all of my friends and my family and backstory. All of those kinds of things make it fun to sit down and draw or think of a story or write a story or draw a film. That was a really good question. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that we had people from all sorts of places, including
International.
Jorge's hometown.
Yeah.
Our last question is from Scout, who's 8 in La Palma. Scout, do you want to ask your question or do you want me to ask your question?
You.
So Scout's wonderful question is, what year did you get interested in animating? For me, that would be the 70s when I was a child. My dad owned a model train store, which is like a toy store, but specializing in little toy trains. And I loved cartoons, and we had a VHS player, and I would sit, that's like way before, DVDs and streaming and all of that. But I would sit and I would watch different cartoons and I would record them and I would pause them to see how they were made. It was when I was a kid, when I was probably around your guys' age. What about you, Jorge?
Well, everybody in animation, we were all kids who drew. And the people who go into animation or become artists are basically the kids who don't stop drawing. So when I was 13 or 14, my dad and a big family dinner, this is very dramatic. He said, Jorge, what are you going to do with your life? And I said, well, Papa, I want to be a painter. I want to be a writer because I used to love stories and I used to love painting. But also I want to be a movie director. And there was a family friend at that dinner. And he said, that is animation. You get to write stories. You get to draw and paint. And you get to make movies. So my father said, no, you could not do this. And I was that kid that when his parents told him not to do stuff, it only wanted me to do it more. So, and obviously my dad's an architect and he was very supportive, but back then he was not supportive. He just, it just seemed like a crazy career because personally, I didn't see anybody that looked like me making cartoons. So the times have changed. Now all people from all parts of the world and boys and girls, it's really, this is a field that's opened up to everybody.
Yeah, when I was little, there weren't a lot of gals animating, but now there's every gender identification and any kind of person can come out and tell their story. And those stories are being embraced now more than ever. So it's a wonderful time to study animation, and we hope that this moment of talking to Jorge and I and seeing all these different guests today will inspire some of you to become animators or artists or designers or musicians or anything. The arts are real and they're a great field to be in. So that was our last question. We wanted to know if any of you have drawn anything during this time period, if any of you or all of you would hold up your drawings because we want to see your artwork now. That's amazing.
So much incredible stuff.
Oh, you guys did a great job. Good job, everyone. Did this make you want to draw more after this?
And hopefully you guys have your parents next to you and your parents heard all this stuff. This is a real thing that you can grow up and do for a living. This is something that you can follow this path. All of us, every single artist and person you saw today, they all started out like little kids drawing, just like you're doing right now. So hopefully this is a path to a career making cartoons and animation and never having to grow up.
Yes, and for any of you who love animation and you don't know how to draw or you don't love drawing, there's all sorts of other jobs in animation as well. So When you're old enough to start looking at that, you can work in production, you could become an editor. There's all sorts of things and ways to work in animation. I mean, animation needs accountants too. So there's all sorts of jobs in animation. So if you want to work in an animation studio when you're older, that is a thing that you can achieve. Thank you all so much. Thank you for holding up your drawings. Thank you for your questions. We appreciate all of you joining us today.
And we want to thank Pete Docter and all our friends at Pixar.
And we want to thank Michael and Griff Giacchino.
And we want to thank Jerry Beck, Mindy Johnson, and Caitlin Minocchio.
And we want to thank Howard Green.
And Peter Ramsey and Miguel Jiron and all our friends at Sony Pictures Animation.
And Hyun-min Lee and our friends at Walt Disney Animation Studios.
And Kendal Cronkhite and Priscilla Wong and all our friends at Universal Pictures and DreamWorks Animation.
And Pierre Coffin and our friends at Illumination.
And we also want to say a huge, gigantic thank you to the City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs. This program was made possible in part by a very generous grant from them. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us today. We hope you had a great time. We totally did. If you enjoyed the program, please share the link with all your friends.
Yep. And don't forget, you can check out a lot of really cool extras about animation on oscars.org. You just click events and then choose Family Day, the art of animation. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We had a great time. We hope you did too.
Adios.
Bye.